Snow series cancelled after George R.R. Martin did this. The truth behind HBO's plans. Welcome back, everyone, to the channel where fantasy meets strategy and nostalgia fuels our digital adventures. Just when fans thought the world of Westeros was coming back to life, boom, the news hits like a wildfire across the fandom. The long-rumored Jon Snow spin-off series, titled simply Snow, was expected to resurrect the Game of Thrones universe with Kit Harington returning as the brooding hero beyond the wall. Teasers, leaks, behind-the-scenes whispers, it all seemed real. Fans held on to hope that after the controversial finale, Snow would be the redemption arc we were all waiting for. But now, it's over. HBO has reportedly pulled the plug. And at the center of this storm, George R.R. Martin. Yes, the George R.R. Martin, the creator of the entire Thrones universe, the mind behind Ice and Fire, the man whose words built empires and dragons, may have just torn it all down. What really happened? Why did HBO cancel Snow? What did George R.R. Martin do that triggered the studio's dramatic decision? Today, we reveal the truth behind HBO's plans, George's controversial move, and why Snow may never see the light of day again. This is the shocking story behind the fall of Snow. The promise of Snow. Let's rewind to the summer of 2022. Kit Harington, known globally as Jon Snow, had just hinted that his character's story wasn't over. At a fan convention, he stated cryptically, "Jon's not okay." That one quote ignited a wildfire of speculation. Then came the leaks. HBO insiders revealed that a Jon Snow sequel series was in early development, codenamed Snow. Not a prequel, like House of the Dragon, but a direct sequel, something fans had been begging for since the divisive Game of Thrones finale in 2019. The concept: Jon Snow, exiled to the far north, dealing with guilt, legacy, and a new threat rising from the frozen wastes. Not only would Kit return, but there were rumors of familiar characters reprising their roles: Tormund, Ghost, maybe even Arya Stark. Fans rejoiced. This was it, the redemption arc. And perhaps most shocking of all, the project wasn't pitched by HBO or even George R.R. Martin, but by Kit Harington himself. That's right, Harington reportedly spearheaded the idea, hiring a small team of writers and even presenting a detailed concept to HBO execs. Martin later confirmed the project existed and stated he was involved, just not leading it. Everything seemed to be lining up. Until it all crumbled. The freeze begins. By early 2023, development had slowed. While House of the Dragon was soaring in ratings, Snow was stuck in the cold. George R.R. Martin suddenly went quiet on the project. In his blog, notoriously known as Not a Blog, he stopped mentioning Snow altogether. That silence became the first red flag. Then came reports from industry insiders. Scripts were troubled. Creative disagreements plagued the writing room. George was allegedly displeased with the show's direction. Behind the scenes, sources claimed Martin wanted Snow to follow the deeper mythology and long-gestating lore of A Song of Ice and Fire, not just Jon Snow fighting monsters beyond the wall. He wanted symbolism, political commentary, legacy themes. Meanwhile, Kit's team wanted emotional redemption and a tighter, more character-driven story. Creative tension began brewing, and then, the ice cracked. George R.R. Martin drops a bombshell. In late 2024, George R.R. Martin did something no one expected. On his official blog, Martin published a massive update. It was supposed to be a progress report on the Winds of Winter, but buried in the middle was a paragraph that sent shockwaves through the fandom. Some of the successor shows HBO had under consideration are no longer moving forward. That includes Snow. It was a valiant effort by Kit and his team, and I was happy to assist creatively. But in the end, it wasn't the right story. At least, not yet. Wait, what? Martin didn't just say Snow was cancelled. He practically confirmed he was okay with it. Worse, he implied he didn't believe the story was ready. Fans were outraged. Social media exploded. The man who gave us Jon Snow just shut down his return. But it didn't stop there. Industry insiders leaked that Martin had actively advised HBO against moving forward. Why? Two main reasons. 1. The unfinished books. Martin was under immense pressure to finally complete The Winds of Winter. He allegedly feared Snow would lock in canon that he hadn't yet written, just like what happened with Thrones seasons 7 and 8. 2. Creative control. George wanted more say in shaping Snow, but HBO had given Kit's team significant creative freedom. A power struggle was brewing, and Martin had seen how unchecked creative divergence could end. Just look at the Game of Thrones finale backlash. So, what did Martin do? He pulled the ultimate creator move. He stepped back, and with his retreat, HBO lost the guiding light they needed. Without Martin's support, and facing budget concerns and narrative confusion, HBO did what they've done before with other spin-offs. They froze the project. HBO's final decision, with George distancing himself, and the script still in limbo, HBO had a choice to make. Their investment in House of the Dragon was paying off. The Hedge Knight based on Tales of Dunk and Egg was greenlit. The Sea Snake project was still alive. Did they really need Snow? A confidential report from an HBO board meeting was leaked in early 2025. It revealed internal concerns. Would Snow feel too disconnected from the polished tone of House of the Dragon? Would audiences return after the finale backlash? Could HBO trust an actor-led project over an author-led one? The numbers didn't justify the risk. They made the call. Project Snow officially shelved. Indefinitely. The announcement was quiet. No big trailer. No social media fanfare. Just a few insider journalists confirming the studio had moved on. Kit Harington, sources say, was devastated. He had poured his heart into reviving Jon Snow. He believed there was more story to tell, more guilt to confront, more north to explore. But in the end, corporate risk management won. And George, he returned to his books. 2 wins. To dream of spring, safe from future canon complications. But the damage was done. Fan reactions and community divide. When news of the cancellation broke, the fandom split, again. Some sided with George R.R. Martin. They said, he's protecting his story. He learned from past mistakes. We don't need more Thrones until the books are done. Others were furious. Why let us get excited for years if there was no plan? Why tease Jon Snow's return only to kill it quietly? Is Martin sabotaging the franchise? Reddit threads exploded. YouTubers made hour-long videos dissecting every line of Martin's blog post. Petitions launched to bring back Snow. Fans tweeted directly at HBO execs. Some even blamed House of the Dragon for taking the budget. But one thing was clear. Jon Snow's story deserved more. Whether through Martin's pen or HBO's lens, fans still wanted to see the man who knew nothing find something more. What could have been? So what was Snow really about? Multiple sources have since leaked concept art, character drafts, and rough outlines. Here's what we know. Jon Snow would begin in exile, haunted by his past. He'd discover a new magical force in the far north, perhaps older than the White Walkers. Tormund Giantsbane would return, as Jon's closest ally. There were plans to revisit Arya, with her. Exploring lands west of Westeros. Sansa Stark and Bran may have played smaller roles, possibly sending ravens or offering counsel. And most intriguingly, Drogon was rumored to appear, possibly carrying Daenerys' remains, or her rebirth. The story would have bridged fantasy and character psychology, showing Jon torn between past sins and new responsibilities. It would have explored grief, legacy, leadership, and the true cost of peace. And now, it's all ash in the wind. So, why was Snow cancelled? Because George R.R. Martin wasn't ready. Because HBO didn't want another PR disaster. Because creativity collided with control. At the center of it all lies one man, Jon Snow. A character who has carried the weight of the North, the secret of Targaryen blood, and now, the disappointment of an unfinished return. But don't lose hope. As Martin himself once said, nothing is ever truly dead in Westeros. Snow may be buried, but it's not gone. Perhaps after Winds of Winter, after House of the Dragon finishes, after enough fan cries, maybe, just maybe, Jon Snow will ride again. Until then, we wait. Like crows on the wall. Watching, remembering. Because the North never forgets. And neither do we. What do you think? Was George right to stop Snow? Or did HBO just miss a